So Poipole is a starter Ultra Beast in the world of Ultra Megalopolis, and it breaks many starter Pokemon conventions, like it only evolves once and into a poison dragon type at that. No grass, water, or fire to be found. And it seemingly doesn't have any other starter options alongside it. But you know, it's an alien. All of the Ultra Beasts are, as we showed in our videos delving into their lore and design origins. And in being alien, they don't have to follow the same starter Pokemon traditions as here in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon's version of Earth. But what if they did? I occasionally see this question answered beautifully by many talented Pokemon fan artists, and you know, I think it's time we flesh out some of my ideas. So I commissioned 2 awesome artists to design 4 Ultra Beasts each to work alongside me with 2 different ideas of what a full Ultra Beast starter trio could look like. And in being so alien, we'll have to consider alien and sci-fi tropes for these designs, as well as invasive species, as all of the Ultra Beasts are based primarily on them. Also, I like the idea that the balancing of the trio is there, but not in a way we've seen starter Pokemon balanced before. So, we're going to have one set of Ultra Beast starters have their types balanced by not interacting at all, whatsoever. No resistances or super effectivenesses against each other as far as their types are concerned. However, what makes Poipole and Naganadel extra special is their super glue shooting ability. So for this trio, we'll have their unique powers and abilities all be super effective on each other in a triangle. I'd imagine it'd be difficult to get across in a game setting, but in a more visual action setting like the anime, it'd be perfect. Let's give this trio to the artist Geodude 1580. The other trio is going to be kind of the opposite. For the basic stages, they'll be your typical super effective triangle, so since Poipole is poison, we'll do grass and ground for the other 2. But when evolved, Naganadel is poison dragon type. How do you make a trio of Pokemon balanced around that fact? Well, simple. Make all of them dragon type, since dragon is super effective against dragon. You could say that because of the special circumstances of Ultra Megalopolis and the duties of the Ultra Recon Squad, they found that dragon types are particularly fitting for their work and way of life. Plus, Space Dragon is like a whole cool trope. Let's give this trio to Virgolophus. And now, we review. First up, the grass-to-grass dragon starter. This is UB Growth. Koozied. It's just a little plant baby. Think of the large and leathery alien eggs seen in all sorts of sci-fi horror media. That's Koozied at its core. The eggy seed pod itself is protected by a free-rotating, thorny vine-like tumbleweed to help it roll around while keeping itself upright, like those gyro ball toys. And inside the semi-transparent membrane of the egg, you can see Koozied's main body and glowing facial features. Something mysterious is growing. And plus, a starter Pokemon you can't properly see the face of is unheard of. Mildly spooky, very alien. But don't you worry, it's not like you'll never get to see your starter's cute little face. They can pop their heads out of the seed egg, just not for too long, as they follow another alien trope. Aliens that are unable to breathe the same atmosphere that species on our planet can. These types of alien species typically have to wear specialized spacesuits if they ever want to visit a human ship, let alone our home world. So what are the invasive species showcased here? Well, tumbleweeds, first of all. Their seed dispersal method means they can invade anywhere the wind happens to blow. You'd think they were native to America since they are iconically in Wild West movies, but no, they're from Russian plains originally. But more importantly is the other invasive plant inspiration, kudzu, also known as Japanese or Chinese arrowroot. It's an invasive vine-like plant that spreads rapidly, and it's pretty prevalent in the mon's name. Koozied, an egg-like seed in a tumbleweed, kuzu, kuzi. Kuzu being Japanese for kudzu. Plus it just sounds cute, and like a little cartoon alien. Greetings, human, I am Zeed! You know? But now look at these villages. This is what happens when a kudzu outbreak goes uncontrolled. It's everywhere. And seeing this made me immediately think of dragons flying over and burning down entire villages at once. Only replace the spreading fire with rapidly growing seeds. That's what Koozied spits out a little bit of, but when it evolves, those villages on its homeworld better pray they have a lot of herbivores. This is the grass dragon type UB Propagate. Gavine. Like many prideful dragons and deities, they see themselves as divine, and making one your partner Pokemon is more difficult than most starters. Imagine Ash's Charizard as the default. And its name also pulls from vine and the Chinese name for kudzu this time, Ge. Like the swaths of land it buries in kudzu breath, Gavine is pretty large when you include the long tail. While Naganadel is big and huggable to a kid like Ash, Gavine could give Ash and Naganadel a ride on its back. It's extremely light for its size too. Like the bladders that keep kelp afloat in the ocean, Gavine's pup orbs, vine tail, leaves, and most of its body has hollowed out sections throughout it filled with helium, which is what it primarily breathes, hence the need for the spacesuit-like plant pod over its face still, breathing only what it synthesizes. This light weight for its size allows it to float in most dimensions, bringing to mind the flying or wingless more mammalian dragons like Falcor from Neverending Story, or like how the kitsune and magic foxes are sometimes depicted floating and dashing about in the air. Surprisingly, none of the Ultra Beasts are even vaguely mammalian, so here's one. It jumps and dashes through the air above the villages it raises with its seeds, which it both breathes out like a dragon and whips out of its tail. These large seed pods can either explode into buckets of kudzu seeds, or if it so chooses, it can lay them down as alien eggs among the town ruins, buried in a protective layer of vines, spreading the way many plants create pups to spread their genes. It's a hefty price to pay for the residents of the town it attacks, but it's all worth it for its divine offspring. Quite the classical dragon personality. Now, let's take a gander over at the other UB starter triangle. It turns out making a trio of Pokemon whose types don't interact at all is a lot more difficult than you'd think, especially when you're already forced to have one of them be Poison Dragon type. We do not have a lot of options here, but a Ghost Dark type is an option. In fact, before Fairy type was introduced, it was the only type combo with 0 weaknesses. And you know what the Ghost type Pokemon group as a whole are really missing? Really green guys. Like, most of them are gray or purple, which Naganadel already is, and we gotta make sure there's contrast between the starter colors in the trios, right? So how about a green alien ghost, like a bright yellow-green? That's a color often associated with ghosts and aliens in more family-friendly media involving them. Just think of ghost slime ectoplasm and green alien skin and all that. Actually, remember the green glowing slushies from the original Toy Story coming out of the Totally Not a Xenomorph dispenser? I always wanted to drink that. It's probably terrible for you. This is the ghost type UB ailment, Foamite, the smallest starter at only 10 inches tall, slightly shorter than Froakie. So think back to War of the Worlds, one of the first and most iconic bits of sci-fi pop culture media. How does it end? Oh yeah, the Martians and their tripod ships all died because of our bacteria. How lovely. So here's a little bacteriophage with a virus head-looking green ghost alien on a tripod of fingers? Well, yes. You see, in the medical world, fomites, spelled this way, are any inanimate object that is likely to carry and spread infection from person to person. Think like the serving utensils at a buffet, doorknobs everywhere, handles, railing, flush buttons, pens. Basically anything commonly touched by a lot of dirty hands is a fomite. But wouldn't a bacteria or virus-looking Pokemon be poison type? Well, as Dewpider. But also, that's where the foe in its name comes from. It looks like gross germs, and the slime it spits up is toxin-like, but it's not, technically. It's faux poison. Fomite's gross, poison-looking slime is entirely ectoplasm that infects and eats its way not at your body's physical health like any toxin would, but rather eats away at your very soul. It harkens back to a lot of older ideas about sickness. Ah, tuberculosis, and even germs haven't been discovered yet. Clearly you have ghosts in your blood. I'll get to the priest and leeches. Plus, sometimes sci-fi media delves into souls and ghost stuff, like Metroid and that old Final Fantasy movie. And a lot of eldritch horror ghosts are really just extra-dimensional aliens partially projecting themselves into our dimension, functioning as ghosts, but they're not. So there's plenty of reasons for this, and I doubt I have to remind you that bacteria and viruses are like the most invasive species of all, right? Technically invasive pathogens, but still invading our bodies every day. But fomite is just a curious little bugger. It's able to contain most of its slime in its head, but sometimes when it smiles, it dribbles from the bottom of its lips. Its mouth opens like it has 3 lips. This is weird. It's not very good at drinking.
Don't accidentally ingest it like me. Now I've got a raging fever of 103.
And whenever I get sick, via the soul or otherwise,
I always think of sponsors. Don't ask me why.
having a job is pretty swell, but the ones that pay well are often difficult to get the training for, or worse,
Boring.
But Boot.dev has created a platform that tackles that problem directly. They've utilized tactics from modern game design to supercharge your journey into back-end development. Their hands-on lessons are a perfect mix of theory and practice, making sure you're ready for anything from mastering technical interviews to launching a successful programming career. After all, the smartest way to learn code is to make sure you're never bored. And Boot.dev is online, self-paced, and feels like a captivating RPG that gets you writing a ton of code, because engaging you and getting your hands on a keyboard and your brain chugga-chuggin' is the best way to learn. Plus, with their buzzing Discord community, you'll never go it alone, as fellow learners and experts are right there. Did you know that the median salary for back-end developers in the US is $100,000? And that it's often a work remotely from home kind of job? The dream, honestly. And if you're on the fence about it, know that you can actually view all their materials for free, and there's a free demo of every course, and it's risk-free. If after some exercises you decide it's not something you want to pursue, they have a 30-day, no questions asked refund policy. It's time to level up and turn your coding dreams into reality at boot.dev. Link in the description.
Hey, you made me sick. Can you cure me too?
But of course, it then evolves, and it leaves ecto slime everywhere. This is UB miasma, latophase. From macrophage, phase, as it ghostily phases through matter, and lat, which is Burmese for hand. Notice the dirty hands and fingers throughout its design, and then its actual arms and hands are just goop. Love that. You got hands everywhere, except where it counts. But why Burmese? Well, I wanted to use the word hand, but in a language that is primarily spoken in an area filled with jungle. So in this case, Southeast Asia. Jungles are notorious for their widespread diseases and goopy marshes, you see. Southeast Asia also is home to loads of terrifying folktale ghosts like yokai, but much more terrifying and disease-spreading specifically. Plus, it's written like this, and you could see that word is like a bacterium. Love that. Plus, from a Western perspective, Lato sounds like another cartoony alien name. Beware, human! I am Lato, and I will fire my phaser at you! Even its little hover feet are like cartoony UFO hoverboard tech and alien antennae. Oh yeah, and it's ghost dark type now. Dark types also need some more bright color in the mix. Latophase plays ghostly tricks just to be mean, detaching parts of souls to give spooky out-of-body experiences, or to make you feel sick for no discernible physiological reason. A mystery illness, an illness of the spirit. And when it's not playing tricks, it's consuming, and it's cruel in its hunting methods. The finger-like appendages up top are like eye stalks for its twisted fingerprint eyes, and when it catches its prey, it will use those to grab hold of its victim's head like a head crab, and slowly open its mouth to drool its slimy ectoplasm, and slowly dissolve the soul of its prey and consume it. In the wild, these ultrabeasts were dangerous, spreading everywhere, expanding exponentially across their planet, and in areas where the planet's own spirit or aura is richer, they spread even faster, and they were totally indifferent to the suffering they were causing, like viruses themselves. Totally indifferent to the damage their very reproduction causes, and they are neither alive nor dead. But thankfully, upon recruitment by the Ultra Recon Squad, they have learned to use their powers for good and healing. Their slime can be used for all sorts of soul ointment to help heal those with spiritual injuries. Now, I think we've seen enough green for today, or all week. Let's look back at the Dragon Triangle and see what we've got for the ground-type starter. This is UB Boar. Minerm. You know, most people are unaware, but earthworms are actually invasive in many areas. They are beneficial to crops, so farmers imported them like everywhere. They're very helpful little guys, but fishermen often use them as bait to catch fish in nice, forested rivers. And some worms escape the hooks, and some fishermen just dump their leftover earthworms at the end of the day. Earthworms are destroying hardwood forests all over the world, as they should not be there. And plus, alien worms, or even just worm-like beings, is another alien trope that the UBs haven't explored yet. Which, of course, knowing that this is going to become a big ground dragon type, you just know it's going to turn into that giant space worm, like the Exogorth from Star Wars, or the iconic Dune worms, you know? But sticking with Minerm, it's a miner and a worm. They dig through the ground at rapid speeds in search of nutrients, and their bioluminescent bulbs burn brightly like many species of cave worms. Where it differs, though, is just how warm and even hot they are to the touch. Minerm can survive in really high temperatures as they prefer digging in and around volcanoes and deep into the crust where geothermal heat radiates with abundance. And yet, if too much dust gets into its nose, it sneezes a super warm goo. That goo is actually a really useful part of its body, though. Have you seen ribbon worms? They shoot out this weird net that is actually their proboscis. It helps them to catch prey, and every now and again these worms go viral for this quote-unquote very alien ability. So perfect for an alien Pokemon. And we can evolve it with a fun fact. Did you know that the blue whale may be the largest animal to ever live by weight, but it is not the longest animal to ever live? That honor goes to oceanic ribbon worms. The longest on record is 180 feet, and despite that, only half an inch wide. So clearly this evolution has to be big, though not as skinny. We want to harken back to dune worms and that whole trope, remember? So let's make it a bit Steelix-sized, a size that can help scream dragon too. Forget Jormungandr, the Norse world serpent. This is UB Excavate, Destroyter, the out-of-this-world worm. Like Steelix, it bores through the earth at quick speeds, using its sharp subway-shaped face to pierce through even the most compacted of soils. When slowing down, it opens its mouth wide like a basking shark to filter feed on the minerals within. But unlike Steelix, it lacks the metal armor and instead becomes ossified. Its armor is made up of dense dragon bone, often said to be magically durable, indestructible even, in some fantasy settings. The name pulls from destroy, detritus, the dirt and such that worms eat, ot, Mongolian for worm, as the Mongolian death worm is the cryptid that started the whole giant sandworm trope, and the name ends with R because worm, and also because of the many serpentine dragons in Norse mythology whose names do the same, like Nidhogg and the aforementioned Jormungandr. And yet, despite how stoic and intimidating it is, it's still a bit of a crybaby. Sometimes it eats too much trash or leaves and it gets a little tummy ache. But don't worry, big guy, you'll be a tummy ache survivor. I also love its teeny tiny little arms. What? Can't it even grab with those? So for this trio, I wonder how Naganadel feels being the smallest of the three. Well, regardless, we've got three dragons who follow different dragon designs. The classical space dragon but slapped on a bee, the long, limbless reptilian Wyrms on a sandworm, and a more magical mammalian take on dragon magic. They also nicely complement Naganadel color-wise, and all three have a capture mechanic to specifically help the Ultra Recon Squad do their job of subduing ultra beasts. Poipole and Naganadel, of course, shoot a super glue-like substance. Kuzid and Gavine shoot rapid-growing seeds that ensnare their targets. Minerm sneezes a net, and Destroyter is fast and inhales even heavy rocks like a vacuum from afar. Imagine Kirby, but a sandworm. So let's go back to the Knoll trio that does not interact at all and see the final new UB starters. And given the types of the two we have, there is only one option left. This is the flying type UB Suit. Hamberry. Oh gosh, a cutie! A space monkey! Think back to the early days of space research. We sent chimps into space in cute little spacesuits. The very first chimp was launched into space in January 1961, and that chimp's name was Ham. Hence the ham in Hamberry. The berry then is Hausa for monkey, Hausa being the biggest language in West Africa where chimps are native. And yes, I know, chimps are not monkeys, they are apes. Notice the lack of a tail. But Pokemon doesn't have to follow every real-world rule. Just look at Infern Ape. Hamberry sounds a bit like ham boning too, which it really likes to do. Many monkeys and apes do, and because of its strange protective exoskeleton-like dome, when it ham bones, it sounds super hollow. Kinda like drums or knocking on a fishbowl. This is how they communicate even in the soundless vacuum of space where they occasionally go, like monkeys in trees to avoid predators, they do this ham boning as a sort of sign language, which some apes famously have been able to learn. And like Gavine before, they are extremely light too and float by inflating their rubbery exoskeleton. And by using some very minor psychic ability thanks to its large monkey brain and excessive gas, they manage to be quite agile while doing so, like monkeys swinging from trees, but they don't need trees. They just fly, like the iconic flying monkeys from The Wizard of Oz, but with an astronaut suit instead of wings. But are monkeys or apes truly invasive? Well, yes, but not iconically so. Macaques and squirrel monkeys as escaped pets are known to be invasive in plenty of areas, like Florida, where families of them have started popping up, breeding, and spreading more. There is one primate species, though, that plenty of folks consider invasive. Possibly even the most damaging invasive species of all time. It's humans. We're native to Africa, and now we are literally everywhere. And our destruction is so rampant and widespread that many of us don't even notice it, or just straight up refuse to acknowledge it. There is, of course, some philosophical debate as to whether or not we should count, because we're humans, we're special, we're not just animals with bigger brains. But for the sake of this, let's say, yeah, especially in this sort of sci-fi alien contest, like Europa very likely has microscopic life on it. So what do we call ourselves when we start colonizing Europa in like 1,000 years? We're literally alien invaders to them. In our spacesuits, which Hambiri's body very clearly is. And I love its little Y2K aesthetic face. And they can spread their arms and tail out completely and rapidly spin in the air to make a little tornado or to quickly give you a pentaslap. Ow. And well, then it evolves into UB gravity. Quarantang, like a cool quasar orangutan, frequently mispronounced as orangutan, and it's in a quarantine suit, which protects it not just from the ill effects of outside diseases and pollutants, but even from gravity itself. Thanks to its big brain, it has access to a few psychic moves, but uses that ability primarily to become so agile and speedy in the air, it essentially ignores all of the effects of gravity altogether. It always is moving as if it is in a zero-G environment, and can launch itself off of seemingly nothing to fly around the battle arena, delivering all sorts of flying-type attacks. It's got 4 pupils inside of its insect-like compound eyes to give it a superior level of depth perception, making it truly a master of the sky and open-air combat. It knows exactly how much it needs to push itself to just reach and annoy you. Like all monkeys, it's playful and mischievous, and will use its lack of needing to touch a floor or anything to sneak up on you from above and behind and just play tricks, like floating right above you and tapping your shoulder. Huh? Hello? Must have been the wind. What's going on? Now, all of the Ultra Beasts have the Beast Boost ability, so we can't give it a cure-all, quarantine-y sort of ability, but we can give it a signature move. Quarantine! It's like Safeguard, which creates a protective field that prevents status conditions for 5 turns, so things like poison, confusion, curses, attract, etc. But Quarantine takes it one step further. You can't even alter its stats for 5 turns. Tail Whip? Don't care. Baby Doll Eyes? Nope. Electro Web? Yeah, the zaps hurt, but you ain't gonna slow him down. He is as safe as can be in that suit. So as a trio, gosh, they look fun. None of them have any type advantage or disadvantage over the others, but their special powers interact. Quarantang's suit keeps it extra clean and pretty much resistant to all diseases, much like the suits of the Quarians in Mass Effect. Wait, Quarians, Quarantang. I hadn't even thought about how amazing that coincidence of names is until just now. And not only that, but it's resistant to curses too. And yes, that includes the spectral illness from the ectoplasm goop of Latophase. However, given how its suit is structurally being almost synthetic in nature, it is extra susceptible to Naganadel's sticky glue, and having its limbs stuck to itself is an easy way to render it unable to do anything. Naganadel, though, it and Poipole are bees, wasps, whole hives of which tend to die to even the smallest of diseases, quickly spreading between them all due to how they live. Sure, Poipole is poison type, so immune to poisonings and diseases, but a soul-detaching disease that bypasses those poison defenses? Surely a single little prank from a Latophase can take out a whole hive of them. All while being simultaneously immune to Naganadel's sticky glue because its entire body is sticky ectoplasm goo. But uh-oh, here comes Quarantang, whose intelligence can see through Latophase's ghostly tricks, and whose mobility can easily approach and slap the snot out of it like slapping the hand of a gross naughty kid reaching for cookies. All the while, it remains clean and safe from the sick. So, there you have it. Our two completely different, unrelated ideas for additional starter Ultra Beasts alongside Poipole. I really like how our artists' styles really shine through with these designs, while also showing just how varied Pokemon themselves can be. Pokemon, of course, have their more cool, serious, and dare I say, edgy designs, but they also have their fun, silly, cartoony ones. There really is something for everyone. And want to support more projects like this? Commissioning artists isn't the cheapest thing, so I super appreciate all of our Patreon supporters and our YouTube channel members. Want to get your name at the end of these videos? Support us on either. YouTube members get little emojis for the comments and streams. It's super rad, and helps us keep going and never stop using our noggins.